Earth Time 2015, October 12th, a Friday. When Kerry awoke, her head was clear and her eyes seemed to be working as well as they ever had. Was she wearing her contacts? That would have been something of a surprise considering that she'd lost them 2 weeks ago. So why was her vision so crystal clear? Colors, she could see weird colors, some of which she had no name for. She was sure that they didn't appear on the paint swatches she'd been browsing for the last month, trying to decide what color to paint her shabby apartment. The new room she was in was quite different too. Colored panels were on the walls, all in different shades. There was no visible furniture though, and nobody visible to talk to. She was about to speak when it all went dark again. She waited for something to happen but it just stayed dark. At least she was still conscious. What do they call you, currently? This voice was similar to the first one she'd heard earlier, but more, well, educated. It wasn't scary, but then the last one wasn't either. This new voice was one that you felt you should obey. Certainly you answered any question it asked. It felt as though it would be impolite not to. Kerry, I'm Kerry Peters, as in the Irish county. Not that I'm Irish. I'm from Corner Brook, the one in Newfoundland, in Canada, she said clearly and she hoped with confidence. Was that too much information to give to an authoritative voice of someone, male, who was obviously nearby while you were laid naked and immobile? Well, Kerry from Corner Brook, I suppose I should tell you not to worry, be calm and everything will be all right, but that might not be entirely accurate. I see. Well, I was seriously thinking of panicking. Would that be considered more appropriate in the circumstances? No, panicking would be a waste of your energy and our time. Quite futile but a perfectly normal rationalization considering our time. Thought Kerry. So there's more than one of them then, and no doubt all male and looking at my naked body. I was just wondering, and I apologize for sounding prudish, but why am I naked? I can come to the where am I bit after. Naked. You're not naked, said the voice in surprise. You were naked in transit because they had to clean you up, make sure you weren't infectious. I see from your HDoc that you had a few minor health issues. Well, minor in context, I suppose, nothing to worry about. All cleared up now, I'm glad to say. Kerry realized that she had movement and feeling back. She reached out with her hand slowly and felt her body. She had clothes on, but what sort, she couldn't say. It was still dark. On the upside she could move, maybe this was where she could act. Is there a reason why it's dark in here? Oh, sorry, I'll change your settings so you can see. Transit was supposed to have taught you how to adjust the light settings for yourself when they had you moved. Sorry, transit people are nearly at the bottom of the intellectual pile. We don't expect too much from them and are never disappointed. In the same way that a phone screen goes from dark to bright when you slide the bar, so everything just became clear and comfortably bright for Kerry. It was almost as if the light level was set just for her. Which it was. Kerry was in another room, much bigger. 3 people were in there with her, 2 were women. She felt safer. If women were there, they might help assist her out, if the men became frisky, although he really didn't look the frisky type. One of the women, quite homely looking, started to speak but all Kerry heard was the same noise she'd heard when whatever she'd been laid on had moved, a sing-along that you needed a song sheet for to join in, and maybe a decent falsetto voice. The woman looked at her, her head doing the tilting thing. She was obviously waiting for a response. Sorry, you sounded like a wasp doing a Celine Dion impersonation while flying around in a jam jar. The talking woman, who Kerry guessed was possibly in her 20s although quite careworn too, so perhaps older, banged the side of her head a bit. Clearly, giving it a thump was universal in the world of equipment malfunction. Is this better? She asked. Yes. Hello, said Kerry. Hello, sorry about that. I'm Bernice. We all have these universal translators implanted. It helps when dealing with different languages and stuff. I think I got a recycled one. It comes and goes. There was an economy drive, or something. Oh, well, ad astra per aspera, as we say in Kansas. The woman had an iPad on her arm, or at least something similar. It was just a sort of part of her arm and she repeatedly glanced at it. Bernice is new here, she's still not up to speed with some things, said the male voice. A wasp is a yellow and black striped insect, right? A jam jar is a glass jar used to store fruit preserve. Celine Dion is a singer whose high-pitched delivery of songs is appreciated by those not suffering from tinnitus, correct? The man looked very pleased with himself, while the woman, Bernice, flicked at the screen of her pad seeking answers. The other, dark-haired slim woman just stood looking at Kerry, not examining as such, more dissecting her with her eyes. She had an edge, she might have been in charge. Yes, Wasp, Jam Jar, Celine, yes, that's right. I suppose you're not from Newfoundland then, said Kerry. No, not from Newfoundland, said the man. Canada, right. Kerry nodded, she'd already said where she was from, so it seemed to be enough of a response at this stage. Bernice was busily thumbing the pad again, presumably Newfoundland was as new to her as Celine Dion, Wasps and Jam Jars were. How could that possibly be? Now that we've done the necessary introductions, and discovered many important new things about this Kerry Peters and popular culture, we need to get on, said a different, accented voice, sharply. It was the other woman, she was finally speaking. Communicating clearly that the pleasantries were now over, and this was when, whatever it was that they had in mind for her, was going to happen. Kerry tensed. The three all started to look at their pads, ignoring Kerry completely. Kerry mentally reviewed the situation. How bad could this be? She reckoned that she could take out at least one of the women, although she'd be sorry to hit Bernice, she was a bit like a bemused kitten. The guy, don't know, maybe with a well-placed knee, it had worked well for her previously. The other one, she was more businesslike and definitely had an edge. If Kerry had to place her demeanor she'd have said, street. Suddenly all three started laughing. It was a sweet, pleasant, musical laugh, quite like what, Kerry didn't know, she'd never heard anything quite like it. Did I do something funny and why do you sound weird sometimes? Do forgive us, it's just that we can see what you are thinking. Very amusing, bemused kitten, very good. It was the other woman again, the one Kerry thought would surely be called Cruella or something. Our translators are on the fringe of their range, like cell phones in out-of-the-way places such as Canada, so they don't always work properly. Actually, I'm Tracy, not Cruella, but I like it. What's it from? Kerry was just about to say 101 Dalmatians when Tracy said, of course, I see it, as she read her own pad. Cruella, now Tracy, and the men who had no name, so Kerry just thought of him as Clint, left the room. They didn't walk out exactly, they were just no longer there. I'm Bernice and I'll be your sing-song. Not getting it, very tinny, said Kerry. You seem to have lapsed into song. Am I trapped in a musical version of a famous sci-fi or something? Bernice banged her head again, quite violently, then fiddled in her ear before finally tapping something into her pad. Sing-song, sorry, better. Yes, thank you. So, wherever this is, you're new here too just like me, and this isn't the hospital at Corner Brook and I didn't get so drunk that my friends just left me in a heap out back of the bar again. Yes and no, well not really. Some of your friends are what we would call field agents from transit. Yes, they left you in a heap behind the bar, shooters, or something similar was it? Which is where we collected you from for your harvesting. Well then, said Kerry, now that you put it that way, I'm completely reassured. I've heard the word harvested used a few times now, so am I about to lose my liver. I warn you, it might not be a grade A piece of equipment, I've not been very good to it over the years. Bernice started to giggle-sing again, before the words cut in. I must say, you're a lot calmer than I was when they harvested me, I went totally to pieces. I thought it was the rapture and I'd been taken up to sit on the knee of the baby Jesus, although, in my circumstances perhaps I was being a bit optimistic. Clearly it wasn't the rapture, I'll explain what's happened to you as best I can. Sorry, not to hark on at it but harvesting, at home at least, means plucking when ripe, collecting when ready to be collected, for use, perhaps as jam. Oh, good, said Bernice cheerfully. You already know the meaning, that's going to save an age later. You have been harvested but not for jam, I can't see human jam being a big seller, besides it would be more. Pâté. Pâté, precisely. Ugh, human pâté, what an idea, said Bernice, gabbling away. Kerry didn't know what to think. She was in a weird room, with a weird woman who had a strangely homely face. She was now, thankfully, wearing clothes that she knew she had on, but couldn't feel as such, and was quite sure that she couldn't buy from Walmart, even in California. What to do? You'll have at least 1,000 questions, said Bernice. So we'll start at the beginning. You might want to sit up or get up and stretch. You can do that now. Sorry, I meant to mention. You won't attack me, will you? I may look like. What was it? A bemused kitten, but I grew up on a farm and can throw a hay bale 20 feet, just saying. Kerry confirmed that attacking Bernice wasn't a priority right now and climbed off the presumed gurney. When she looked back, it wasn't there anymore. Bernice knew the look and was prepared with a speech. I don't fully understand the science, but it's there when you need it, then it sort of goes away when you don't. Very clever stuff. There's a lot of things like that here. You'll probably get used to it, if they keep you. This was nuts. So, if I want to sit down, I just sit and a chair appears beneath me. Hang on, if they keep me. Now it all sounds ominous. See, you're getting the hang of it now, and they said people from Newfoundland were slower on the uptake than people from Kansas. Now, try it, sit down, said Bernice, ignoring the ominous. Kerry laughed, threw caution to the wind and flopped backwards. She instinctively braced for impact but was immediately supported by the most comfortable chair she'd ever sat in. Lazy boy executives would have soiled their pants for the patent. Bernice was again looking at her pad, which Kerry realized wasn't like any kind of iPad that she'd seen before. It was a part of her arm, well sort of, there did appear to be a link, but then there wasn't either. She decided to ignore it for now. The first thing is to tell you where you are. The manual says that those harvested often feel better when they know that. You might have guessed already, you're my first. I'm just through training, it's all so exciting. I'm your first what exactly, said Kerry, getting slightly testy. My first crop. I'm your host and guide until they decide whether you will live up to your potential, the potential you showed that made you a candidate for harvesting. There will be others involved in your development, as and if it progresses, but I'll pop up when needed. Like I said, you'll get used to it, I'm sure. And if I don't live up to my potential, as you call it, is that when I get cut up, prodded and poked before being dumped at some remote farmhouse where the dog hides from me, I have a trickle of blood coming from my nose and no memory? Bernice looked like she might panic. I'm a big fan of alien abduction shows, said Kerry, by way of explanation. Bernice didn't seem to understand, but pressed on without looking it up on her pad. If you don't make the cut, sorry, poor choice of word, you might end up working in transit, I think. They never satisfactorily explained that bit, it was just sort of implied. And transit is almost as low as you can go. Yes, well, almost, but transit certainly take care of most of the dirty stuff, from harvesting to keeping the place clean and tidy. I like them, they do a good and important job I say, said Bernice, hedging her bets in case anyone important was listening. So, just in case I fail to reach expectations, but not because I am not totally confident that I'll not be some sort of high flyer in the scheme of things here, what's lower than transit? Putting it in terms a North American might grasp, think say a self-serving politician who cares more about themselves and their own wealth than about their country and its people. They get very menial duties when they accidentally come here, like shoveling poo, wakes them up a bit. Bernice blushed. At last, something that made sense, thought Kerry. She continued. Okay, location then. You are going to calm me down by letting me know where I am. Will I actually be calm when you tell me? Oh, yes, well, maybe not at first. Come over here, put your hand on the bluish panel, then just say, show me, in a clear and confident voice. Sorry, that's what it says here, said Bernice, pointing to her pad. Kerry decided to humor Bernice. It wasn't her fault, she was obviously an orderly in the place, which Kerry had now deduced was a sanatorium. She'd finally been sectioned. It was bound to happen, everyone kept telling her that she was flaky and getting flakier by the day. Now she'd flaked out big time. She strolled over and reached forward, gingerly touching a vaguely blue piece of wall. Immediately the entire wall vanished, only to be replaced by the blackest black that Kerry had ever seen. The intense black punctuated by stars, lots of stars, it felt like she'd stuck her head out of an open window into a pool of black ink livened up with a scattering of glitter. Holy fuck, what the fuck, said Kerry, pleased to have kept her composure. Nice, isn't it, said Bernice, beaming. I can't get used to it myself. I often stand looking out, it's so pretty, although I don't remember swearing quite so much, not even the first time. The Harvesters. By Mark Dennis. Available as paperback or ebook from Amazon.